Howdy GX community, this is GXBOB. Today we are going to do some investigative work and I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. I'm driving and I keep hearing a scraping sound, and it only happens when I'm moving. Whether I'm moving forward or reverse, I hear a scraping sound from my rear driver's side and I cannot figure out what it is. I cannot replicate the sound when I spin it by hand because I'm rotating it way too slow. And it only, you can only hear it when the car is actually moving more than 5 miles an hour or something, and it just bothers the hell out of me. I'm looking around and I see nothing out of the ordinary. My brake pads are fairly brand new. My rotors are great. I don't see any leakage of any sort. I don't think anything is getting stuck. I don't see anything out of the ordinary at all. So we are going to take apart our rotors and find out what is causing this scraping sound. Okay, so first things first, we took off the wheel, 21 millimeters, right? You know where your lock nut is? It's in the back tailgate inside your tool compartment back there. We took off the wheel. I'm going to take your camera. I'm going to take the camera and bring it back here and show you step by step on what it takes to remove this caliper component before we remove the rotors. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, guys. For this job, I'm going to be using a 3/8 drive, set it at 77 foot-pounds. I'm going to use a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench. I set it at 89 foot-pounds. I'm going to use a brake spring compressor. You could get these at Harbor Freight in an entire kit. I got a long needle nose. I got a short needle nose. I got a 21 millimeter. I got my Lexus lock nut, and I have a 17 millimeter socket. I'm also using a 1/2-inch drive drill motor, and I'm using a Phillips. You could use a hand Phillips screwdriver if you want. And you're going to use one of these screws to break open your rotors apart from the rest of the assembly. And I'm not exactly sure what size this is, but if you look around your garage, you're going to find this bolt somewhere. You just got to get the right threads and the right thickness. Okay, here we go. We are right behind the caliper assembly. We do not want to remove these two 17 millimeters. We leave them alone. We only remove these if we want to change out the brake pads. We are actually removing the ones in the back, which is forward of this towards the driver. We are removing this 17 millimeter and we are removing this 17 millimeter. After we remove these two 17 millimeters right here, this whole entire caliper and its bracket will come right off of the rotor, okay? Usually I would just get a ratchet at 17 millimeter. If you guys have a hard time trying to break it loose, I would just get some kind of plumber's pipe and put it behind the ratchet right here on its handle and use it for leverage. Use it as an extension. What I also like to do is I like to grab a box, something like this. I would put it right behind here just so I can put my caliper right on top of the box to support it so it just doesn't dangle down and I don't have to tie wrap it anywhere. It just makes it really simple for me. Wiggle it out. Set it on top of your box here for support. Now, in order to remove this, right offhand, this is going to be really stuck. You're not going to be able to remove this, okay? So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and release your foot brakes. Now you're going to focus on these two screw holes right here. They're threaded. You're going to have one right here and one right here. If you look closely, they have threads in them. So what you're going to do is you're going to find a bolt or a fastener, any kind of fasteners that's going to fit in there. I went into my garage, looked around to my box of fasteners, and I found a fastener right here. I'm going to go ahead and put it inside these threads right here. I'm going to get a Phillips screwdriver and I'm going to drive it in. I'm not going to go all the way on just one thread. I'm just going to go a couple of threads here, bring the bolt down here, go in a couple of threads back and forth until this thing comes right off, okay? Take it off. You're going to come back down here. You're going to do the exact same thing until this breaks loose. Once it breaks loose, you can take it out. Be careful, don't drop it. You might dent the rotors. Set it nicely on the floor. Now if you take a look at my brake shoes, you're going to totally tell that something is totally off. Okay, now take a look closely. You see how this brake shoe right here is fixed, and it has a big slot right here. And you take a look at this one, it's at an angle. Oops, did you see that? Something fell out. There we go. Bingo. Okay, let's set that aside. I already know what that is. Okay. What you guys just saw dropped was this. If you take a look at the driver's side brake shoe, you're going to see a spring and a clip in there. And the good thing about Lexus is if you rotate this steel plate right here, this plate right here, if you rotate it, it actually has a slit for a bigger opening for you to view. See this slit right here? It is open up, and now you have a better view of the inside. See that? That is the spring and the base plate that is missing on the rear brake shoe. Okay, so let's take a look at the rear brake shoe. If I move this forward, let's go ahead and rotate this so you guys can see better. See in there? There it is, right there. Do you guys see that metal cotter pin in there with the slots? It's missing the spring, it's missing the base plate, so that's what it's missing. So we're going to go ahead and look underneath here to make sure everything fell out. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it some more. Okay, cool. Now what we want to do is we are going to buy some brake hardware. We're going to buy some brake hardware, and we are going to replicate this assembly. Okay, so we're going to put everything back into this really tight space. How are we going to do this? Very simple. We are going to rotate this until this shielding gives us more visibility by going through this slot right here. See this? Moving it down here. Now we have more visibility and more space to work if we were to rotate this shield plate out of the way. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our brake hardware. Here is the rear brake shoe. This is what it looks like. If I were to put everything back together, we would have this pin going from behind the brake shield. It would go right here behind here. You would have this piece right here that locks into right there. This goes inside the little slot right over here. And you actually have a spring seat right here. You put your spring on, just like your rear coils. And then you would take this top piece right here and you would put over this slot. The thing is, this slot is in a vertical stance, and to lock it into place, you would turn it until it's horizontal and it locks into place. You take this and you turn it horizontal, it locks into place, and it should hold in just like this. This is what's missing from my rear brake drums. How this got loose, I can assume that the last person I took it to have my foot brakes and my emergency brakes adjusted, he did something and this came loose, or this piece right here got moved to a vertical stance, and while my car is driving, this popped off. When it popped off, everything else fell out, and the scraping sound you guys heard was probably these components right here at the bottom of my rotors scraping along the rotors, or this piece right here was scraping along the inside diameter of the rotors also. So that's my best guess. So I'm not going to take it back to the mechanic and start doing the blame game, because you know they're going to give us the runaround. I already have everything out already. I'm going to go ahead and put everything back together. You can go ahead and buy these parts on eBay or Amazon. Here you go. This is the brake hardware kit that I bought, and it comes with all of this. I'm not going to be using any of this. I'm just going to keep everything OEM, and I'm only going to take the parts that I need to replace the parts that are missing. Okay? and which are these 4 pieces right here. So let's go ahead and go back to the car. Now if we take a look in back of this brake shoe, you are going to see a hole. You see that hole right there that's in the shield? There's a hole right there where one of your pins go from the back. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. We're going to take this pin and we're going to run it through the back of the caliper assembly right here, and we're going to stick this pin through that hole. You see it going through the hole right now? It's going through the hole. Now it's got to go through the slot in your brake drum. Got there, you see that? It's going right through there. Now let's keep it right there. Now we're going to have to put our little spring seat on there. So all of this, we're going to be using a needle nose plier. I'm going to be doing this in the way of the camera because it's going to be really hard to see, but I'm going to show you what it's going to look like after I put it in, okay? We're going to grab a C-clamp to help hold this against the shield so we have more space to work in here. There you go. We're going to grab this adapter right here and place it where it needs to be. Please don't move, please don't move. There you go. Now comes the spring part. I think this is going to be the most difficult part here.
24 hours later.
So what I just realized was I was not able to have this pin held in place while trying to compress this and while trying to put this cap on top, trying to compress everything within this tight little compartment. There's no tools out there for me to be able to compress this cap because I would have to compress the spring all the way down to the maximum, just like that, in order to fit this on top, in order to lock it into this pin. And it was impossible. I tried everything. It was super impossible, and I wasn't able to do it, only because the space behind here is tight. I know that you're supposed to remove the whole entire hub assembly and everything, and that's just way too much for what I'm trying to attempt right now. I'm trying to do a temporary fix in order to, when I get a chance, I'm going to actually take this to a mechanic, or whenever I have enough time to take this whole entire assembly apart. But for right now, what I did was I reversed the pin because the spring portion is now on the back. I was able to compress the spring portion on the back because there's so much more space without having to remove the entire assembly. So if you take a look inside here, there's my pin right there. It's reversed. So the locking mechanism is on the back. Let me show you the back. The locking mechanism is now in the back. It was a lot easier to compress the spring and to lock this plate in, to lock this disc into place. And let me show you on the table on exactly what I did. Before I even did this, I made sure that this wasn't in the way of anything, any moving objects, any moving components that is going to detriment the function of this spring. Okay, let me go back a little bit to show you guys what it looks like. There's the spring component. This is what I did. I took the pin and I slide into place right here. And on the back of the caliper assembly, I actually took the spring. I put the spring against the back plate of the caliper assembly, the rotor assembly. Then I put this cap on. And I twisted this cap until it locked into place, just like this. And then the spring sits on the seat right here while this is held in place right here. And now it works just exactly the same, except it's reversed. It's not like this anymore. It's like this. Okay? After we're done, we're going to go ahead and set the emergency brake adjustments right now since everything is off the vehicle. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. You take a closer look underneath here, you're going to see this gear right here. You're going to flick this towards you. When you flick this towards you, it expands these two drum brakes further apart in order to make contact with the inner diameter of your rotors, okay? This brake shoe right here is going to be riding on the inside of your cylinder right here. So what you're going to want to do in order to adjust your e-brakes is you're going to want to have these drum brakes expand out until it rubs against the inside of here. And how do you find out what is right or wrong? You're going to put your rotors back on, See, if it goes on pretty easy on and off, it's too loose. It's way too loose. You want it to be scraping. You want it to be snug. You want it to be kind of fidgety, just like this, so it doesn't go in and out very nicely. So you're going to take the gears down here and you're going to flick it towards you. You're going to flick it a couple of times. Check it. Check if it scrapes. The fit. This is the kind of fit I want. So you see that? So you push it in. Pretty tight fit. Okay, let's go ahead and put our calipers back on the way we removed it. Line up these two 17mm bolts right here. Make sure it goes in nice and straight. You don't want to scrape up your brake pads in a weird angle. Slides right in. See that? Tighten it pretty tight by hand. We're going to grab a torque wrench and set it to 77 foot-pounds. I normally click it about 3 times. There, we're good. What we're doing is we're setting it on the lowest setting and we're letting it seat. Remember, we're not torquing it. The reason why we're doing this is because we want to lower the vehicle to do our final torque. Okay? 21mm socket, 1/2-inch drive. I got to set it on 89 foot-pounds, 90 foot-pounds. I'm going to go in the star formation. Done. Look at that, it goes halfway now, not all the way down to the floor anymore. That's good. Good adjustment. I know a lot of you guys are looking at me with a dumb look and saying, what the hell did you just do, Bob? What you just did was not OEM. You know, if you take it to Lexus, there's no way in hell they would have done the same thing that you just did. Of course not. They're going to take the long route. They're going to take the whole wheel hub out there and take the axle out. They're going to drop the engine just so they can charge you $3,000 just to replace one spring. So our job as do-it-yourselfers is to find ways to think outside of the box to make something work again, to put everything back to how it's supposed to be. And if you can't, and if you have the lack of resources, to find a way to make it work, to use your creative mind, add things, remove things, as long as it doesn't pose a safety issue. I already went ahead and taken a look at all the components. I've taken a hammer to it. I've made sure that every single moving component is not going to detriment anything else if that spring happened to come loose. Even so, that drum brake is inside of a contained space. If something were to come loose for any apparent reason, and I will check from time to time to make sure that everything is still in place, but if that spring component ever come loose for some apparent reason, that drum brake is not going to fly off the rotor and onto the freeway somewhere. It's all self-contained, okay? So with that being said, I know that what I did was not going to be a huge issue. It was just to hold a spring in order to hold the drum brake against the brake shield. That's all it did. And if it didn't hold against the brake shield, what it would do is just pop out just a little bit, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and would it create a scraping sound again? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the scraping sound was created by that broken spring and that broken cover clip that was hanging at the bottom that fell out, and that scraping sound would be completely gone. But anywho, I am due a brake change and a drum brake replacement sometime soon in the future. And by that time, I'm going to take everything apart to make sure that all the spring components, all the clips and everything are still where they're supposed to be. with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video because it gave me an opportunity to really look at a repair from a different angle in order to not spend $500. And all it did was cost me a little bit of effort to figure out how I can put this back together and not say, I give up.